When I went to register my marriage with my boyfriend, the registrar informed me that there was a 10-year-old child registered under my household record. I froze on the spot. My boyfriend's face also changed. I am unmarried and have no children. I'm only 28 this year. How could a 10-year-old child suddenly appear out of nowhere? I asked the registrar to help me find out which school this child was attending. Quickly, Chen and I rushed to the car and drove over there. The information showed that the child registered under my household record was named Zhou Xiaoqi. 10 years old this year. Currently in 4th grade at Fangkao Elementary School. All along the way, Chen An's face was tense. I sighed and asked him, "Don't you believe me?" He shook his head and explained, "I believe you. I just think this matter is too strange. It probably won't be that easy to solve." 10 minutes later, we arrived at Zhou Xiaoqi's school. Only then did I realize this school was just 2 kilometers away from the apartment I bought 5 years ago. We found Zhou Xiaoqi's class, and the moment the teacher called him out, I became even more certain this must be a mistake. Because as I looked at this child, I was positive I had never seen him before. And I absolutely did not know him. The child also looked confused. I approached him and asked, "Do you know me?" He shook his head and answered, "No, I don't." Clearly, there was no useful information to be gained from him. So I briefly explained the situation to the teacher. He told me that Zhou Xiaoqi had transferred to this school 2 years ago from another school. That's about all he knew about him. To all the princesses watching, congratulations on finding this video. Welcome to Binding Your Perfect Life System. To claim it, all you need is 3 dog emojis. This system will bring you all kinds of good luck. Pass every exam without fail, shed 10 pounds instantly, and add 6 zeros to your account balance. I asked the teacher for the contact information of Zhou Xiaoqi's parents. Soon, someone on the other end of the line answered my call. But as soon as I introduced myself, there was a brief beep, and they abruptly hung up on me. This reaction only deepened my suspicions. So Chen and I decided to wait right here until Zhou Xiaoqi finished school. Then we would quietly follow him home to see what we could find. At 5 o'clock, school ended. Zhou Xiaoqi, with his backpack on, began walking slowly in the direction of his home. After following him for a while, I realized he was heading to the apartment building directly across from my own. It was no more than 500 meters away from the place I bought. The moment Zhou Xiaoqi knocked on the door, Chen rushed forward and held the door open. A woman around 30 years old appeared in the doorway, gripping the doorframe and shouting at us, "Who are you? What do you want?" I stepped closer to get a better look. I definitely didn't know her. I introduced myself. "My name is Yu Miao." Her expression changed instantly, but she quickly forced herself to stay calm, standing stiffly and saying defiantly, "I don't know you." But her reaction clearly showed she was lying. "You don't know me? Then do you know that your son is listed under my household record?" She immediately panicked, her gaze shifting nervously. "What nonsense are you talking about? If you keep this up, I'm calling the police." "Fine, call them right now. I was just planning to go to the station myself to get some answers." I kept one hand on Zhou Xiaoqi's backpack. "And from the way you're acting today, it seems you know the truth behind this, don't you? Isn't it strange to you? Why would your son be under the name of a complete stranger? I'm a single woman in my 20s. And now, out of nowhere, there's a 10-year-old child registered under me. You owe me a reasonable explanation, don't you?" She replied defensively. "How should I know? Maybe it was a clerical error by someone handling the paperwork. Why are you coming to us? Go ask them." Crazy! Then, while I was momentarily distracted, she pulled Zhou Xiaoqi inside. And with a loud slam, the door shut in my face. If she was going to be this uncooperative, I had no choice but to seek help from the police. Chen and I went downstairs and headed straight to the nearby police station. The police quickly helped me check the records. It turned out that Zhou Xiaoqi had been transferred under my household record 2 years ago, but I had known nothing about this. An older policeman glanced at me, then spoke in a slow, measured tone. "Are you sure you have absolutely no connection to him?" I nodded firmly. Of course, there's no connection, otherwise I wouldn't be here filing a report. He thought for a moment, then said, "There's one possible explanation. The child being under your household record. It might be because they're using your property's school district allocation. Is your property within the Fangkao school district? Is it for Fangkao Elementary School?" In an instant, everything clicked into place. I nearly choked, unable to believe it. Back then, my mother insisted I buy this apartment so that my future child could attend a good elementary school. And now they'd taken that school spot from me. What would happen to our own child's schooling in the future? The officer tapped his fingers on the table. "That's likely it," he said. "They probably found a way to register their child under your household record and use your property's school district to enroll him in Fangkao Elementary School. Didn't you say the child transferred to that school 2 years ago? He was added to your household record 2 years ago, too. The timeline matches." In the end, the officer suggested that I first try negotiating with Zhou Xiaoqi's parents. If the negotiation fails, then we can handle it as a formal report, he added. He gave me the details for Zhou Xiaoqi's parents. The woman from earlier was indeed his mother, named Lin Hui. The information showed that she is currently a full-time homemaker. His father is a business manager at a local publicly listed company named Zhou Yan. Seeing the name Zhou Yan, I suddenly had a faint memory. 3 years ago, I rented out my apartment, and I think the tenant who signed the lease with me was indeed named Zhou Yan. Back then, I had left everything to the real estate agent, so I didn't handle it in person. We signed the lease online. I quickly pulled out the rental contract from that time. I compared the information. Sure enough, it was him. In an instant, everything connected. If my guess was correct. It all started when I rented out the apartment 3 years ago. Then somehow, they managed to add their child to my household record to get him into the district school. Standing downstairs, I sent Lin Hui a message. "I know everything now. You have 10 minutes to come downstairs. Let's discuss this face to face. If you don't cooperate, we'll settle this at the police station." As expected, Lin Hui had lost her earlier bravado. 10 minutes later, she came down, looking defeated. We sat down in the cafe downstairs. I handed her a printout of my household registration record. Zhou Xiaoqi is listed under my household to attend Fangkao Elementary School. She avoided my gaze, staying silent. I continued. "The only relationship we have is that you rented my apartment for 3 years ago. On what grounds did you claim my school district?" She began to speak. "I don't know either. I have no idea how Ziche ended up registered under your household. We simply went to enroll him in school, and it went through. I had no clue about any of this." It was clear she was determined to deny it. I smiled a little, then leaned back in my chair. "It's fine if you won't admit it now. I have plenty of ways to make you acknowledge the truth. I'm only giving you this opportunity now because the child is still young, and because I'm giving you a chance. But if you're going to throw away this chance, don't blame me later. We live in a society governed by law. What you've done is bound to have loopholes. And if this ultimately affects your child's future, don't blame me. You meow, have many things, and time is one of them. So I have plenty of time to deal with you. Be sure to spend a little extra to hire a decent lawyer." With that, I prepared to leave. Just as I reached the door, she suddenly stood up and called after me. "Miss Shou, let's talk. What exactly do you want?" I turned back slowly, feeling a bit amused. "So soon? Already willing to compromise? Then let me lay it out clearly. I have just 3 demands. First, I don't care how you do it, but within a month, Transfer Joe Zicha out of my household registration. Second, arrange for him to transfer out of Fangkao Primary School immediately. And lastly, I want my school district quota returned to me intact. If my future child's education is impacted, that won't be acceptable. As I finished laying out my terms, her face went pale, and she stammered, "How could you? Do you know how much effort we put into getting him into that primary school? And now you're telling us to just. That would mean all our efforts were in vain, like water in a bamboo basket. Ms. You can't be this cruel." I was almost amused at her reaction. "This is what you call cruel?" I walked up to her. "Lin Hui, are you thinking straight? First, you used my school district placement without my knowledge. That's called theft. I don't care how much effort you put in. You stole something that belongs to someone else, and returning it is only right. So how am I the cruel one here? The fact that I came here to discuss this with you is giving you a chance, but it seems like you don't want that chance. I have plenty of other ways to resolve this. Transferring Zichao is absolutely out of the question," she insisted. "So tell me, how much money do you want?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Trying to pay me off, are you?" As far as I know, only Zhou Yan has a job in their family. They still haven't even bought a home in this city. It's clear their financial situation isn't ideal. I shook my head. "I don't want your money. My demands are exactly what I told you before, just those three. I'm giving you 1 month. If it's not resolved in a month, then I'll handle it myself." Without waiting for her to say anything, I turned and pushed the door open, stepping out ahead of her. The next evening, I received a message from Lin Hui. "Ms. Yu, I agree to your demands, but I need 3 months. Transferring a child to another school requires coordination with a new school. It's not that quick." I thought it over, and since it wouldn't make much difference in the short term, I agreed. However, I warned her, "Don't try any tricks with me." 3 months later, I checked, only to find Zhou Zicha was still registered under my household. Did this family think they could make a fool out of me? I went straight from work to their house and hammered on the door. This time, the door opened quickly, and the one who answered was a man, likely Zhou Yan. I got straight to the point. "You and your family are treating me like a joke, aren't you? We agreed on 3 months. So why is Zhou Zicha still listed under my household?" Zhou Yan shrugged casually. "If you have a problem, go ahead and sue us. We're not going to transfer him out. We're actually waiting for you to do it. You thought you could scare my wife because she's naive, but I know better. Once a case like this goes to court, if we refuse to cooperate, we can drag it out for years. How about 3 to 5 years? My son will be done with primary school in 2 years anyway. So go ahead and sue if you like. We have all the time in the world, too." He had a look of shameless defiance. I was so furious I nearly lashed out. But at that moment, Lin Hui stepped out as well. When she saw me, her expression seemed much more confident than before. "Ms. Yu, last time my husband wasn't here, and when you spoke to me, I nearly fell for your tricks. But this time, I'm no fool. If you really want to sue, then go ahead. We're not going to stop you. We're fully prepared to face you in court." I was furious. "So you really think there's nothing I can do about you?" Zhou Yan grinned. "You people always talking about your so-called methods. Isn't it just about going to the court or the police station? I already told you I don't care. If you want to sue, go right ahead. Or have the police come arrest me. Because one thing is certain, we are absolutely not transferring schools. Let's face it. You're just unlucky that we used your school district. If you think you can get anything back from us, my advice is to forget about it." With that, he slammed the door shut. Facing this level of shamelessness, I had to admit maybe luck really wasn't on my side. I went home and stewed over it all night, unable to let it go. The next day, I took a leave from work. By the afternoon, I was already waiting outside Fankau Primary School. At 5 o'clock, the students were dismissed. In the distance, I saw Joe Ziche strolling out casually. He meandered through a few turns and finally entered an internet cafe. I walked right in and dragged him out. Then put him in my car. The kid, whether out of shock or simply clueless, sat there stunned and followed me into the car without a word. His silence actually made things easier for me. Otherwise, it'd make me look like a child trafficker. In the car, I told him, "I'll take you to KFC first." His eyes lit up immediately, but then he quickly slumped down and asked, "Auntie, you're not going to tell my mom I went to the internet cafe, are you? If she finds out, she kill me." "Of course not. As long as you cooperate with me today, I absolutely won't tell your mom," I replied while driving. His spirits lifted instantly. "What do I need to do to cooperate?" "Simple. You'll stay at my place for the next few days. I'll explain it to your parents. Don't worry about it." After taking Joe Ziche to KFC, we got back home around 8 p.m. At 10 o'clock, I was sitting on the couch watching TV. When my phone rang right on time, I glanced at it, and sure enough, it was Lin Hui. I purposely let it ring a few times before picking up. As soon as I answered, I heard wailing and screaming on the other end. "You meow! What are you planning to do with my son? I'm telling you, this is kidnapping. It's a crime. I'm going to call the police to arrest you." I sighed before calmly replying, "Lin, dear, it's fine to be ignorant of the law. I'll give you a free lesson today. Joe Ziche is registered under my household. If I take him with me, how can that be considered kidnapping? Even if you go to the police, they won't be able to do anything. Oh, by the way, the child is here with me, eating and sleeping well. You have nothing to worry about. Let me officially inform you today. As long as he's registered under my household, I have no intention of letting him see you. And another thing, I thought it over carefully today, and after spending the whole afternoon with Ziche, I realized I actually like him quite a bit. The cost of raising a child these days is quite high, and having one of my own would be a hassle, so getting a 10-year-old son for free isn't too bad. So, I'm planning to go to court tomorrow and file for custody of Joe Ziche since he's listed under my household. It's only natural that I claim custody of him, right? Just wait to receive the court summons." After I finished, I could hear Lin Hui scream through the receiver, "You meow, you lunatic! Ziche is my child. What right do you have to demand custody? You can't take him away from me. If you want a son so badly, why don't you go have one yourself? He's my son." I had no interest in listening to her tantrum any longer, so I decisively hung up the phone. The next day, I followed through, filing a lawsuit for custody of Joe Ziche in court. The court summons quickly reached the couple's hands. I didn't answer a single one of their countless harassment calls in the following days. By now, they were as frantic as ants on a hot pan. Receiving the summons, they finally broke down. The person who reached out to me was the same officer who had helped me gather information on them before. When I arrived at the police station, the two of them were already there. I sat down amused, setting my bag aside, and joked, "Well, look at this. Decided to walk right into the trap, have we?" Zhou Yin shot me a hateful glare, while Lin Hui looked as if she had aged 10 years. Her face was pale, and her hair was disheveled. As soon as she saw me walk in, she burst into tears and immediately dropped to her knees in front of me. "Ms. Yu, please, I'm begging you, just give me back my Ziche. I'm truly pleading here. I can't live without him. He's my entire life." Her face was a mess of tears and snot. I shifted my chair back a bit, putting a little distance between us. I said, "Sister Lin, you really can't blame me for this. I gave you both a chance before, but what did you say? You told me to just accept my bad luck. Ziche is listed under my household. The court supports my claim for custody. And besides, look on the bright side. He might have a better life with me. After all, I'm in a much better financial position than you two. Isn't that right? As soon as I said this, Joe-yin kicked his chair over, pointing at me and shouting, "You lunatic!" I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, watching him throw a fit. "You meow, just say it. What exactly do you want?" I already offered you a solution. I replied slowly. If you want me to back off now, then do the 3 things you promised me. The sooner you get them done, the sooner you'll be able to see Zhou Ziche. If you want to see him sooner, you'd better get moving. Oh, and just a little heads up, Ziche has been asking about you too. Yesterday, he kept asking when he'd get to see his mom again. Hearing this, Lin Hui's fragile composure broke down once more. She grabbed Zhou Yan's hand, pleading, "Husband, please, just agree to her demands. I can't bear not seeing our son. I can't wait another day." Annoyed, Zhou Yan shook her hand off, staring at me for a long moment. Before finally speaking, "I agree to your terms, but you're not to lay a finger on my son." I stood up satisfied and assured him, "Relax, I'm not some child trafficker. He's well taken care of here. But if you want to see him soon, you'll need to put in the effort." This time, they acted quickly. In less than a week, Josie Key's name was removed from my household registration. Zhou Yan called me right after. The first thing he asked was when he could see his son. Did he really think that completing just one task meant he could start making demands? Suppressing his anger, he said, "I've already arranged his school transfer, and the school district issue is taken care of." I nodded with satisfaction and praised, "You're quite efficient after all. But just because you say it's done doesn't mean I'll take your word for it. I'll need to verify everything. If it all checks out, you'll be able to see the child tomorrow." I'm not sure what they did, but my school district quota was indeed freed up. The homeroom teacher informed me that Josie Key's transfer papers had been processed. That evening, I brought Josie Chet to the police station. They got the message quickly and rushed over. The 3 of them embraced, crying together. Lin Hui thoroughly inspected Josie Chet from head to toe, asking him with concern, "Son, did that woman mistreat you over these last few days?" I rolled my eyes from the side, looking at Ziki's noticeably chubbier face. Where did she get the idea that I mistreated him? Zhou Ziche shook his head and replied quietly, "No, Auntie was very nice to me. She bought me anything I wanted to eat." Zhou Yan immediately smacked him on the head, scolding, "Eat, eat, eat. All you know is eating. Are you a pig? You let someone buy you a meal and they trick you away? How can you be so foolish?" He hid behind Lin Hui, looking aggrieved, tears brimming in his eyes. I stepped forward and said, "Now that everything's settled, let's go our separate ways from here." With that, I turned and walked out the door. Finally, it was all resolved. A wave of relief washed over me. Earlier, I had plans with Chen An. Once I get this all sorted, we'll go back and finally register our marriage again. As soon as I stepped out the door, I called him, sharing the good news. We agreed to go get our marriage license next Monday. I planned to relax over the weekend, but on Saturday morning, Zhou Yan called again. Suppressing my irritation at being woken up, I answered. His tone, however, was completely different from before. It was obsequious as he began apologizing. "Ms. Yu, after all this, we've come to fully realize our mistakes. Our family is planning to move back to our hometown next week. They say no fight, no friendship, right? Maybe it was fate that brought us together like this. Ziche told us how well you treated him these past few days, so we'd like to invite you to dinner tonight. It's our way of formally apologizing for everything that's happened and thanking you for taking care of Ziche. He seemed afraid I'd refuse, and before I could reply, he quickly named a restaurant and then hung up. Since I didn't have any plans that evening, I decided to accept the invitation. At 7 o'clock when I arrived, I saw Joyen sitting alone in the restaurant. I put down my bag and asked, "Where's Sister Lin? Why didn't she?" And Ziche, he glanced at me. "They went out shopping. They'll be back soon. Have a seat," he said, pulling out the chair next to him for me. I felt something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Just as I sat down, he suddenly placed one hand over mine, while the other reached over my shoulder, trying to pull me closer. I screamed, attempting to pull away, when a sharp slap landed on my face. I looked up to see Lin, who was standing there, fuming with rage. "You meow! How disgusting can you be? Not only did you try to take my son, but now you're after my husband too? You shameless vixen! Have you no shame? Stealing other people's husbands! You're despicable and disgusting." I opened my mouth to deny it, but before I could, Joyen suddenly apologized to her. "Wife, I'm so sorry. It's all this woman's fault. She seduced me. She knew I had a family, a wife and a child, and yet she invited me here alone." Then he turned to me, berating me with a disgusted expression. "Meow! I never expected you to be so shameless. You're young, there are plenty of things you could do, but instead, you choose to go after someone else's husband? And you have a boyfriend too. How can you be so unfaithful?" Lin Hui chimed in. "I know your boyfriend, and I'll definitely let him know what kind of person you really are. And by the way, I took photos of the two of you just now, holding each other. I'll post them online soon, so your boyfriend can see exactly what kind of woman you are. They'll all know across the internet how you tried to steal someone else's husband." Their dramatic performance quickly drew the attention of everyone around us. People in the restaurant began gathering, a few of them pointing at me, whispering in what they thought were low voices, saying things like how I was young and shameless, acting as a homewrecker. I don't even remember how I got home that day. All I recall is that shortly after, my phone started blowing up with notifications. A friend sent me a video asking, "Meow meow, is this you?" I clicked on it, and it was the video from the restaurant, where Lin Hui was standing there, pointing and yelling at me. I went on Weibo to check, and found my name trending in the top searches. Clicking into it, I saw that exact video, with countless people leaving angry comments under my profile, calling me shameless and accusing me of being a homewrecker. Someone even dug up my address and workplace. Even Chen An's Weibo was flooded with people leaving green emojis, and others were now prying into the details of Ziki's school transfer. Some commenters claimed, "I must have been colluding with Joyen from the start, and that's why I let his son use my school district spot. Now that we've had a falling out, she's making a scene like this." Insults, slander, and malicious speculation poured in from every direction. I sat there, stunned for a long while, before I could even begin to process it. Chen An's call came through as well. When I picked up, he immediately asked, sounding worried, "Where are you?" "I'm at home," I replied. He let out a sigh of relief. "I saw the video," he said. I asked him, "Do you believe it?" Without hesitation, he replied, "Of course not. Your taste isn't that bad. Besides, it's obvious they set you up. You caused them a huge loss. There's no way they'd just let it go without trying to make you suffer too." Chen An's words brought everything into sharp focus. I suddenly recalled, back in the restaurant, when people started crowding around us, Lin Hui had shot me a smug look, even exchanging a wink with Zhou Yan. Turns out they had planned this trap together all along, waiting for me to fall right into it. So that's why they suddenly did a complete 180 with their attitudes. They've been setting me up the whole time. With the online harassment so overwhelming, it seriously affected my daily life and work. Chenin helped me take a leave of absence from work, telling me to avoid going out for the time being. He promised to handle everything that afternoon as I lay on the couch watching TV and munching on chips. Lin Hui's call came in. "You meow, how does it feel to be misunderstood by everyone?" I replied, exasperated. "You really went all out just to get back at me, didn't you? Even throwing your own husband under the bus. Aren't you afraid he might actually cheat on you?" "Well, I can't help it. You left me no choice. Besides, he's my husband, I know him well. My marriage is perfectly happy. And let's face it, for a young woman, reputation is everything. Now that yours is ruined, as far as I know, you can't even go to work anymore. And leaving the house isn't an option either. The internet is flooded with insults about you. Do you realize how people see you now? Like a rat in the street, with everyone wanting to stomp on you." I rolled my eyes and asked, "Are you done? If you don't have anything else to say, I'm hanging up. All this nonsense is giving me a headache." She let out a mocking laugh on the other end. "You meow, even now, you're still putting on a brave face? I called to offer you a chance. If you agree to sign over that house of yours to us, I'll clear up this mess for you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was stunned into silence for a full 2 seconds. I asked her, "What did you just say? You want me to give you my house? You mean transfer it to you for free?" "Exactly. This is your only shot. You have to understand that the public opinion online is terrifying right now. Your reputation is ruined. People see you as a street rat. If this continues, you'll not only lose your job, but you'll struggle too. Find a partner too. Trading a house to regain your name, what a bargain." I was so furious I wanted to curse. "Lin Hui, do you realize what you're saying right now counts as blackmail?" She replied casually, "Call it whatever you like. If you think it's blackmail, then sure, it's blackmail. But to me, it's just a suggestion. Whether you take it or not is up to you. If you do, maybe your reputation will be restored by tomorrow. It's your choice, Ms. Yu. I'll give you 3 days to decide. But you know how fast public opinion moves, don't wait too long." Then she hung up. I scoffed to myself. What greed! Ignoring her, I went straight to bed. If I actually agreed to her terms, then I'd truly be out of my mind. Later that night, Chen came home quite late. He rushed into the bedroom, full of excitement, and woke me up. Guess what I found out today? Guess what I discovered? Still half asleep, I looked at him in confusion. What? This afternoon, I went to Fangkao Primary School. "Why were you there?" I asked. "Because as far as I know, Zhou Ziche isn't enrolled there anymore." I was following Zhou Yan. That got my attention, and I sat up. Zhou Yan? What was he doing there? That's the thing. I found out Zhou Yan's having an affair, and guess who with? The mother of one of Zhou Ziqi's classmates. With that, he handed Emmy to photos. One photo showed Zhou Yan and that woman with their arms around each other, entering a hotel next to the school. Another photo captured them kissing in an underground parking lot. I was so shocked by the photos in front of me that I couldn't say a single word. Earlier this afternoon, I had followed Zhou Yan to his office, but at around 3 p.m., I saw him driving towards Fang Elementary School. At that moment, I already felt something was odd. Then around 3:30, a woman about 2 kilometers from the school got into his car. Afterward, the two went straight to a hotel and checked in. They didn't part ways until nearly 5 o'clock. Then the woman returned to the school gate, picked up her child, and headed home. Zhou Yan turned around and drove back to his office. This means they likely used the excuse of picking up their kids to have a secret affair. By the looks of it, they have probably been seeing each other for some time now. I analyzed the situation out loud. Well, that's obvious. Zicha transferred schools quite a while ago already. Just looking at the two of them, anyone could tell this has been going on for a long time. Moreover, I even did some digging. That woman is the mother of Sun Yuyu, Ziki's classmate. They both have families and children of their own. It's a double betrayal. On the third day, Lin Hui called me right on time. So, how is it? Show me how, have you made a decision? As I was putting on my coat, I replied, yes, I've made up my mind, but I'll decide the place. Come alone at 3:30 in the afternoon. She laughed. Don't worry. My husband doesn't have time to come looking for you. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Right. Your husband is too busy finding another woman. I chose the meeting spot at Yunshin Hotel, right next to Fangkao Elementary School. I sat in the lobby, waiting for Lin Hui. 10 minutes later, she finally arrived, taking her time. Seeing that I wasn't as exhausted as she might have imagined, she looked a bit surprised. Well, look at you, still young, huh? Even when faced with something this huge, you don't look the least bit worn out. If I were you, I'd be pulling my hair out by now, and definitely not in the mood to put on makeup. She sat down across from me. I'd saved that seat just for her. From that position, she would have a perfect view of that couple strolling in, arms around each other in a few moments. So she began. Have you made up your mind? I've brought the agreement with me today. If you're fine with it, just sign here and now. As she spoke, she pulled a stack of documents from her bag and handed them to me. I opened them casually and flipped through. You sure have guts. That house of mine has a market value of no less than 5 million now. Yet, you actually expect me to hand it over for free? What else can I do? 5 million to preserve your reputation. I'd say that's a fair deal. Oh! Then I'd like to know how exactly you plan to clear things up. Don't you worry about that. I'll make sure your reputation is restored by then. But isn't it true that you're framing me? Lin Hui, let me walk you through the origins of this whole situation today. First of all, we only met because you arbitrarily used my house's school district quota. Isn't that right? All I asked was for you to remove your child's name from my household registry. That's a reasonable request, isn't it? I simply wanted my school district spot back, and to remove your child from my registry. In response, you went and smeared my name with such filth. And now, you're using that same dirt to blackmail me, trying to force me to give up my house for free? Just listen to yourself. Do you really think that's reasonable? What? So are you saying you won't agree? Then why did you invite me here today? Just to spout all this nonsense? I suddenly laughed. Did you actually think I'd say yes? If I agreed to this, then I'd really be out of my mind. No, I didn't come here just to say these things. Of course, I've prepared a big surprise for you as well. I reached into my bag and pulled out the 2 photos Chen An had taken, pushing them toward her. She looked puzzled at first, but reached out to take a look. Her expression gradually turned pale. What's wrong? Look familiar? From what I know, this man here seems to be your husband, Zhou Yan. And this woman? I'm sure you know her too, don't you? No need for me to give further introductions, right? Her hand started shaking uncontrollably as she held the photos, and she stammered a few words. Where did you get these photos? I gave a slight smile. There's no need for you to know where they came from. But as long as you can clearly see who's in them, that's enough. She suddenly stood up, furiously throwing the photos to the ground. These are photoshopped. They have to be photoshopped. You must have had someone fake these to trick me. My husband treats me so well. How could he possibly cheat on me? How could he be with another woman? No way! I shrug helplessly. Think whatever you like. If you want to deceive yourself, by all means. Just then, a message came in from Chen An. Zhou Yan and that woman just entered the hotel. I put away my phone, then looked at her. Mrs. Joe, if you don't believe it, you could stay here for another minute. In a moment, you just might see your husband walking in, arm with another woman. Her eyes widened in shock. And not even a minute later, Jo-Yen entered the hotel with that woman, laughing and chatting as they headed straight for the front desk. Lin Hui lost control, screaming as she charged towards them. She lunged directly at the woman, catching them both off guard. The woman stumbled and fell to the ground. Lin Hui sat on top of her, yanking her hair, shouting and crying at the same time. It was only then that Jo-Yen finally snapped out of it. Jo-Yen quickly tried to step forward to pull her away, but Lin Hui grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it toward him. Blood instantly began streaming from his head, and he collapsed unconscious. The woman was completely pinned beneath Lin Hui, unable to fight back at all. Her hair was a tangled mess, and red marks covered her face from Lin Hui's scratching. "You shameless woman! You filthy seductress! How dare you go after my husband?" By now, a crowd had begun to gather around. I took the opportunity to slip out quietly. Out of goodwill, I even called 110 and 120 for them. Later, I gave Chen and the recording of my conversation with Lin Hui. Chen posted it on Weibo for me. Public opinion quickly turned in my favor. Many netizens sympathized with me, commenting on how unlucky I was to have encountered people like this. Not long after, the video of Lin Hui attacking the mistress at the hotel was also uploaded online. Everyone then realized that Jo-Yen really had been cheating. This time, though, not many people sympathized with Lin Hui. Most said she deserved it. I later heard that the blow from the vase had affected Jo-Yen's brain nerves, and he was still in the hospital fighting for his life. Lin Hui was taken into police custody for assault. Zhou Xiaoqi's grandparents, upon hearing the news, rushed over from their hometown. But with their son and daughter-in-law bringing such disgrace upon themselves, they didn't dare make too much of a scene. After spending a week in the police station, Lin Hui was released. She was then forced by Zhou Xiaoqi's grandparents to go to the hospital and care for the still unconscious Jo-Yen, since she no longer had time to look after Zhou Xiaoqi. The child temporarily went back to the countryside with his grandparents. The story ends here.